Bear down, Bears fans. Another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast coming your way. Pat the designer, Courtney Cronin here on a Friday because the Chicago Bears have drafted Colston Loveland. Yep, that's what it sounded like at the draft party yesterday. A good pick. I think this is actually a pick that makes a ton of sense for how the draft ended up falling. We're going to break all of that down, get some of Courtney's insight on this very interesting tweet yesterday from Courtney on Ben Johnson pushing to get a lot of people in this draft. We want to talk about that. And of course, see what the Bears are going to do on day 2, all that and more on today's episode of the Chicago Bears podcast. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Courtney, Colston Loveland, how you feeling?
I don't think this was the tight end that most people thought the Bears were going to take. And maybe that's just the wrong thinking about it, that, Tyler Warren, I know that Ryan Poles said that there was a conversation going on whether they were going to take Tyler Warren, whether they were going to take Colston Loveland, because both were available to them at 10. There weren't many mocks that had Colston Loveland going to the Bears. Let's just be honest about this. Anybody saying, oh, I thought this guy was going all along, he's such a better fit than Tyler Warren. There weren't many people probably outside of the Bears that thought that. So I guess it's why it generated a bit of a, this is they got the tight end. It's just not the one that they were expected to take. I think it was even ESPN bet, they closed, Colston Loveland closed at plus 300 to be the first tight end off the board. But as much as it was the surprise pick for the Bears, I guess if you want to say it like that, it doesn't really feel like a surprise when you saw how the first round fell, that it was so expensive to trade up. The Bears were like, yeah, we're good staying here at 10. And then when the 3 offensive tackles are off the board, by the time that by the time it's the 8th overall pick, or rather 9, because Kelvin Banks went to New Orleans, I'm not surprised at all that they went the route of, let's go and get the best player that we have available and somebody who we anticipate having a pretty significant role as a rookie in this offense. And, it leaves a lot of options for Friday in round 2 and 3, but I think the Bears are happy that they walked away with another skill player and somebody who they believe will contribute significantly to Caleb Williams' growth in year 2.
Yeah, listen, I think that the other thing for this too that I do like about it is, I think if you take Tyler Warren, right, it's kind of a signal of okay, they're going to run 12 personnel, but eventually you're probably moving on from Cole Kmet here. This feels like a complementary piece to Cole Kmet being a part of this offense. Cole Kmet being more of the traditional inline type of tight end. Colston Loveland is a tall wide receiver that just didn't figure, that's just too heavy to play wide receiver. When you watch his tape, when you really look at him in his time at Michigan with up and down quarterback play the entire time, and let's be real, more times than not, just not throwing the football in that offense.
Yeah.
The thing that I love about his game is he's one of those players where you're just like, how's nobody covering that giant running down the field? What happened at the line of scrimmage that he's that wide open? I think that's a player that just, it doesn't take away from who Cole Kmet is. Cole can still be the goal line guy. Cole can still be the short yardage guy that's able to pound for a few extra yards. And you can have Colston Loveland in there when the Bears are running some 12 personnel as a guy that can route you up and get down the field. That to me is a better combination than maybe what Tyler Warren would have been. To me, Tyler Warren speaks to, okay, we've got $10 million we can save next year if we cut Cole Kmet.
Sure.
Tyler Warren's going to become tight end 1.
I think when you bring up that point, it's that Tyler Warren is more similar to Cole Kmet's skill set as the true replacement eventually for Kmet, who's only 26. We need to not think that Cole is some wash tight end.
Yeah.
26 years old. He's, in the 3rd year of his contract, and he's got guaranteed money this year. He'll be fine, at least in the short term. But the way that, think about the moves that they made this offseason. They did not re-sign Keenan Allen, which was kind of an obvious move. They didn't go get a true number 3 receiver. Here's your number 3 receiver. Because the way that Ben Johnson had made it work in Detroit, where it was Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta's caught 17 touchdowns over the first 2 years of his career. He was utilized on 83% of snaps on offense as a rookie. That was 2 years ago. This projects really well for Colston Loveland to fill that sort of role. Not saying that Tyler Warren wouldn't have been able to. I think he would have been a nice fit in that regard to, balance out the offense and what you get from the tight end position. But they view very clearly them going with Colston Loveland tells you they view him as more of the receiver prototype that they're looking for from that number 3 position that just happens to be a tight end.
Yeah. The only thing I think that would have made this to me a questionable pick is if there was a trade back scenario. Cause I think once you kind of saw how the board was falling, right, and you get to 10, you're like, okay, is there a real trade back scenario here that's in place? Ian Rappaport tweeted this out probably about 15 minutes ago of us recording this, said every year there's a player who gets really hot late. One team, one that teams are scrambling to trade up for. Last night, that player was Michigan's tight end, Colston Loveland, when the Bears picked him number 10. The calls in the early teens quieted down. There wasn't a trade until 25. And Courtney,
Yeah.
for Houston to move up from 25 to 10, like, I'm not just taking your soul. I'm taking, just give me the name of the franchise. They were never going to give you that much to move up that high.
Because
so
there was no
realistically,
offensive lineman for them at that spot.
exactly.
Like, that's what they needed. Like,
Exactly.
there's, and the Colts, God, the Colts really lucked out. They might be one of the bigger, like, under the radar winners because they desperately needed a tight end. And they got Tyler Warren to fall to them 4 picks later. And they didn't have to do anything in the process of getting the guy that they wanted. So, I mean, I think it's a win for both sides. Now, it's not like, I don't know. I think that when people put out like this is an A+ grade right away,
I don't know about that.
I don't see that. But a solid B in an offense, like they've spent 4 picks in the first round since 2023 on offense, including this one. Like, it's go time for this offense. That's everything's pointing towards. You continue to build around Caleb Williams and you're giving him every single tool he needs to be able to succeed in year 2. And Ryan Poles closed out his press conference late last night talking about what this sort of move does for a young quarterback. And anytime you can have multiple tight ends, anytime that you can be in 12 personnel where you have some of these heavier personnel groupings, I think, it's the backfield, it's being able to have the weapons on the outside. Like, it's really important for Caleb's growth that he has a lot of different options in what this offense can do. And so they're going to keep, when it projects forward to Friday in rounds 2 and rounds 3, what they end up doing will be really interesting just in terms of another running back, maybe another offensive line. Like, when do they eventually go defense? But I think it just keeps pointing to Ben Johnson has a lot of influence over what's going on in terms of the personnel. And I know that Jeff King said that there were a couple different guys that Ben was, pushing for yesterday. He's being paid $13 million a year. He's going to have a much bigger say in personnel than previous coaches had. And he deserves the right to, because it's his offense. And everybody who's been talking about, you hear, it's interesting because you heard Ryan Poles and you heard Jeff King talk about, this is a piece that's going to allow Ben the creativity, and basically making it sound like it gives Ben the option to be this mad scientist, to go into the lab, to like come up with all of these insane mismatches that are going to take advantage of a defense and use his creativity to scheme, different guys open in ways that allows you to stay a step ahead of the defense. I don't feel like we ever heard that with Matt Eberflus and the draft picks. Like, oh, this guy's going to make Flus's defense that much better. This guy, Flus, is going to love working with this guy. This guy's going to be his chess piece in the back end of the defense. We never heard that. It's a different rhetoric around Ben Johnson and how they view, if we get him another piece here, if we do this to the offensive line, Ben can cook. That's how it's being presented. And that's why the Bears are confident that this is a player who's going to, come in and make some early contributions. I know that there's some fans out there who have, asked me the question on social media. Well, why would you use a tight end? Why would you use a top 10 pick on tight end 2? This guy's not going to be tight end 2, guys. No. Like, use a top 10 pick. Like, he's going to be your third receiver in this offense. Now, the big question is, like, what does that mean for Cole Kmet? Like, what does that mean for his usage? And I think it's going to be not as much of like, they're interchangeable. Like, I think they're going to really try to, like, yes, can they both catch passes? Sure. Are they both effective in the passing game? Yeah. Cole Kmet was, one of the top receivers on this team a couple of years ago. Let's not forget. Obviously, the depth chart at the receiver position certainly dictated that, but he's still a blanket for a young quarterback, and he can still be very effective, especially in the red zone area. I think they're going to pick their spots on where they use these guys and not use them as like, all right, you guys both do the same thing. I think they view them as different tight ends and that there are mismatches and that you can mix and match their skill sets to get the most out of this offense and create something in this passing game.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. And listen, if you're talking about an offensive weapon, if you're talking about adding weaponry to Caleb Williams, right, I would love to sit there and say that go out there and get the offensive lineman. But we heard Ryan Poles talk about it, right? You got to add to this team. You got to add impact players. But a lot of the players they had at 10, you've also got some grades on guys at 20, at 30, at 40, at 50 that are kind of in that same range. So some of the offensive linemen or defensive linemen that maybe were available, you've got 2 picks here in the second round that I think are going to be very impactful for you, especially with how many people, and maybe there's some concern on a bunch of names there, but like Mike Green, Will Johnson, all falling to the second round. Like that to me was a very unexpected situation. So to still be able to come out of it with a piece that it feels like 100%, like no matter how you feel about him, I know he's not a great blocker. He's more of a receiver, like you said, the third wide receiver in this offense. But to be able to come out of it with a piece that we can clearly say, Ben Johnson is going to be able to use this guy in some really, really good ways at 10. I think that's all that you can ask for. You got somebody who can be impactful on offense. You've got somebody that can stretch the defense down the field. You've got somebody who's a great route runner. Like, you got a really good piece with this young man, and it was the best case scenario for you based on how the top 9 picks went. I think the Bears came out ahead. I actually like this pick. I get Warren, right? And I think Warren probably is I guess you say the better overall athlete than Colston Loveland is, but Colston Loveland also fits a lot of the intangibles that Ben Johnson likes. He's had 1 penalty in the last 2 years, and it was somebody else's fault.
Yeah, and I do think Colston Loveland probably actually has a better athletic profile than Tyler Warren, like overall, and he's faster. Like the speed element there, you don't want a stiff tight end. And I'm not saying that that's what Tyler Warren is, but like the speed element of Colston Loveland, I think really jumps off the page to the Bears. People were disappointed. Fans, rather, were disappointed because they had heard the name Tyler Warren way more than they heard Colston Loveland.
Yeah.
Mel Kiper had Tyler Warren as the top tight end on his board. And because they decided to pass over him, it felt like, oh, well, what is this? Is this a miss? Like, I think we learn a lot in the pre-draft process and then seeing how it plays out in each round about how you can have all the draft analysts that you want out there. You can have all of the great points that people make about these prospects. Teams are going to view it within the confines of their scheme. And what this scheme is dictating is that they want somebody who's faster, who projects more as an athlete, projects more as that move tight end, your F tight end that you can move around the formations. And Tyler Warren can do all of those things. It's just that they view Colston Loveland as somebody who can do it better. And he's 21 years old. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of time for this guy to continue to grow into what he's going to be. The size, I mean, he's 6'5". He's huge. Like this is a big tight end who can create separation. And you brought it up at the top of the show. There's times when you watch the Michigan games from last year, even when they had a horrific passing offense, they went from a national championship team to averaging 120 something yards per game passing. They were like they were 100 and I have it here. They were 130th. They were averaging 129.1 passing yards a game. They were 130th of 134 qualified teams in FBS with their passing game. That's awful. Yet his production, by and large, like his numbers are not going to look like Tyler Warren's. Tyler Warren had a lot of generated, like manufactured yards because they were purposefully targeting him all the time, which it is crazy to think about. You have 2,000-yard rushers and a tight end who, set all these records, single season school records, won the nation's award for the top tight end, had over, 1,200 receiving yards, but everything was geared towards him. In Michigan's offense, they struggled to throw the ball, but his production didn't really fall off. It's like, I feel like that's a really important thing to point out, that this is a tight end who has been able to stay consistent no matter the ups and downs of the quarterback position. And that's important when you have a second-year quarterback who We don't know. Like, I mean, we assume that all of these things that the Bears are doing are because they believe. We know they're doing this stuff because they believe in Caleb Williams. And it's kind of like chicken and egg, which comes first? Like the belief in you that you can be the franchise quarterback, so we got you all these pieces, or we got you all these pieces because we want you to be a franchise quarterback and we think this will help you get there. I think it's a little bit of both. But, you know, I think having players who can adjust to your quarterback and help him through any sort of like bumps and bruises that he goes through in year 2 as he's learning a new offense, and having a tight end who, no matter who's throwing him the ball, he's been pretty successful at it. He's a leading receiver in the national championship game 2 years ago. There's a lot to like in terms of the upside, in terms of the production that he brings, and in terms of the role in which he projects in this offense.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's going to be a lot of good things coming for Colston Loveland here with the Chicago Bears. I think it's the right pick for the situation that the Bears were in, and hopefully day 2 and rounds 2 and 3 add some more depth to this team and some more starters on both sides of the trenches. Before we do move on, though, I do want to let you guys know, I'm excited to let you guys know about a new partner of ours, Mitch Lyons Wealth. Mitch Lyons Wealth is a former NFL player, and he's the expert in protecting your nest egg and optimizing your income. Go to Mitch Lyons, Lyons Wealth.com, MitchLyonsWealth.com, your best game plan to protect, grow, and win retirement. Also got to let you guys know, Chicago Bears podcast is brought to you by the Advantage Dealer Group. Find your next Chevy, Toyota, or Acura and drive off in under 60 minutes, or they'll make your first car payment. Shout out to that. Let's keep this moving along here, Courtney, as now we've got day 2. Mm-hmm. And the second and third round are going to be key rounds here for the Chicago Bears. The third round is one that Ryan Poles has, to this point in my mind, has just completely struggled in.
Struggled a lot overall.
Yeah. But the second round has brought us some really key pieces, and I think there's some good names here with 2 picks in the second round, 39 and 41. Where are you focusing in now? Can you afford to go with another weapon, or is it time to just dig deep and go into the trenches?
Well, I think it's the thing that's gonna dictate this is where the run on running backs start, because Ryan Poles last night said that he expects even more movement in day 2, because there was obviously the Jacksonville and the Cleveland trade that came out of nowhere, even though they said after the fact that they had been working on it for 2 weeks, they did a good job keeping it quiet. But then you saw some movement at the end of the first round. Atlanta moving up a spot, the Philadelphia Eagles moving up a spot to get their outside linebacker, Jahad Campbell. I think there will be some significant movement as the run starts on like the deepest position in the draft, which is the running back class. Now, does that mean that Cleveland and the Titans are going to start, boom, 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 like taking running backs? Not necessarily, but I don't think the Bears can afford to not get that person to bolster the backfield at 39 or 41. I don't know. There's offensive linemen that you can get in round 3. I think that will be what they do at 72 if they don't address it at 39 or 41. Where these edge rushers go, though, you look at the names that are available right now. It's Mike Green,
yep.
The Donovan, how do you say his last name? Ezeriku, the guy from yep. Boston College. Yep. And then there seems to be a pretty significant gap after that. So if they're, they, not for nothing. Ryan Poles has not really drafted anybody with character concerns when that obviously is kind of falls into the Mike Green category. So I don't know if that'd be somebody that they would be like super high on, considering that doesn't fit the profile of the type of risk that Ryan Poles has taken in the draft. So maybe, I know it's weird that they, continue to go offense this heavily, but I still think that that's probably your best play. When we look at, there's 2 running backs that went in the first round. Omarion Hampton was projected as a late first round, early day 2 guy. Does the run start pretty soon in round 2? I think the Bears get involved in that immediately, so they don't pass up on a Caleb Johnson, or if Travion Henderson is there and they like him. I know they had 4 running backs in on top 30 visits. It doesn't mean that those are the only 4 that they were looking at, because Ashton Genty's gone, Omarion Hampton's gone, the kid from SMU is still around, and Caleb Johnson. They'll have a nice array of talent to pick from. But if you want that top end running back talent to bolster your backfield the way that Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery created for Detroit's offense under Ben Johnson, I don't think you chance it. I think you immediately use that 39th pick on a running back, or maybe you move up. Like this, depending upon how much it costs. But if there's a running back that they are super high on, and I know that the cost yesterday, but that was the first round, and the cost was
that was the move back into the first. That's also that was a crazy trade.
It was, and I don't. It's still hard to see like who won it. I mean, obviously, in terms of draft capital, the Browns came away with far more of a haul than I think most would have thought to move up 3 spots, but. That became too expensive because of the precedent that was set in the top 10 by those 2 teams. Tonight, maybe that changes. If there's a running back that they absolutely have to have, and from what we've been hearing about what's going on inside the draft room, Ben Johnson has a pretty significant say in what's going on. He's got guys that he likes. I would not be surprised if they moved up to go take a running back.
Say that again, Courtney, for the fans who just think that Ryan Poles is the one just going rogue and Ben Johnson has no say on whatever is happening in this draft.
Yeah, no, I mean, of course he's going to have a say. He's the head coach, and, look no further than his salary to determine that this guy is going to have considerable voice in the type of players that they draft. So I would not be surprised early on. Again, I keep saying it, like it's a running back draft. It's a deep class. Can you get guys on day 3? Sure. Go and get the sure thing now if that player's there for you in round 2, and don't overthink it, because that's the next for an immediate need. If left tackle, like they told you last night that they didn't think there was a left tackle there at 10 that they felt like was a necessary move for right now. If we don't have this, our left tackle plan is screwed. Yeah. They can get that guy later on. I don't think that would be the same case with a running back that you think can make an immediate true impact as the 1A to 1B to DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, and listen, I don't know. Trade up would be trading up for a running back. That's just it's not in my MO.
It's the second round. I mean, I think you can justify it a lot more, because if the run starts and there are players that they don't want to miss out on, I think you can absolutely justify trading up, because you've got 2 second-round picks. And it certainly will not be the cost of what it would be if you were to have done that on Thursday.
Yeah, I agree with. The one name I think is the big name is Travion Henderson.
Sure.
If you were going to move up, I would say he would be the name to move up for. One, because not only adding to the running back room in totality, but Courtney, you got 2 tight ends on the team, and I mean neither one of them are great blockers. Travion Henderson fits a role that I think the Chicago Bears may need in that backfield if you are trying to get a little bit of extra protection for Caleb Williams, if you're going up against a tougher defense that's getting to him a little bit more. Travion Henderson is probably the best blocker from the running back position in this draft overall. And I think he also adds the speed. He also adds the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. And people are talking about him like, I get it. We got to look at the numbers, right? And he just broke 1,000 yards and he had 10 touchdowns. He was in a split backfield with another running back that also broke 1,000 yards.
Who's probably going to end up hearing his name called tonight too.
Like, you have to have the conversation on Travion Henderson of, what if he gets majority of the drives? Like, they were equally split at Ohio State. It was impressive to watch. What if he gets more of the drives? What if he does become the number 1 back? I think if he's the number 1 back at Ohio State, we're having a completely different conversation on who the number 1 running back coming out of this draft is.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great point, just like in terms of like him and Ashton Genty, because his numbers would have been vastly different if he wasn't splitting time with Quinshon Judkins. So it's an interesting conversation to have about like where his ceiling is and what teams expect from him. But I think, as far as like the big board right now and best available, he's right there, certainly right there at the top. I know Mel Kiper, I'm looking at it now, has Will Johnson, the cornerback from Michigan, who's like his overall like top remaining prospect. Yeah. The Bears don't have a need at that spot. Then it's Mike Green. Then it's Nick Emanwari, the safety from South Carolina. I think round 2 would be a little early for a safety. I do think that they address that tomorrow, but their biggest need right now is still at running back for the immediate term. And if you can get the top guy, I think it's going to cost you. I really do, because I think there's a couple teams ahead of you in the draft order that might be eyeing Travion Henderson. And if depending upon how many spots you'd have to move up, I'd say if that is your top guy, you don't think twice about it, and you make sure that you do what it takes to get him in.
Yeah, the safety conversation I think is an interesting one because I think in the third round that may be something interesting. And when people talk about Nicky Maniwari, I think he's the number one safety coming
Yeah.
out that's still left available. Right, 100% agree. But Kevin Winston Jr. dealt with injury this year. You could be dealing with a Jaquan Brisker situation where this guy was, I believe, coming into the draft, or if he would have been in the draft basically last year, people were putting a first round grade on him. And now because of the injury, he's fallen a little bit. So
Mhm.
that'd be somebody I would watch for at 72. But looking at this second round overall, I do think, listen, I think the best player, and I get it, the stuff off of the field and everything else that it takes place does matter. The person does matter to Ryan Poles. The best player left in this draft is Mike Green right now. I think there's a game-changing piece on the field. I get it. He doesn't ideally fit what Dennis Allen is looking for as far as weight and size-wise at that edge position, but he did say he would trade pounds for power. And when you look at Mike Green, he's pure power. He resets the offensive line just about every single time. I, I don't need to go to church with Mike Green and feel good sitting next to him. I need him to be able to sack the quarterback, and it's the one thing that he was the best at in all of FBS.
Yeah, and I also wouldn't rule it out though, because there will be a team that ends up, using a second round pick on him. I think that's pretty obvious.
100%.
I think that this defensive tackle class and the run that we're going to start to see here coming up like mid-second round, early third,
Yeah.
don't rule that out as a spot that the Bears continue to address, because they did do that in free agency. But Grady Jarrett's on the other side of 30. To continue to get younger, knowing the importance of the interior pass rush and how much the Bears place an emphasis on that, I would not be surprised if they go defensive tackle before they go edge rusher, because it's all about addressing the pass rush, and it's all about finding your waves of pass rushers, which is what Ryan Poles told us is the thing that he took away with the biggest from the Super Bowl. His biggest takeaway was that, and a lot of that came from the interior.
Yeah.
This is one of the deeper defensive tackle classes that we've seen. So, I know Mason Graham was the headliner. We're all kind of waiting on the best of the rest to come out. That's a day two thing. That is absolutely going to be part of the story that we're talking about on Saturday.
Yeah.
Like how many defensive tackles came off the board and whether the Bears got involved in any of that. I would say, if you had to ask me, I think they do that over edge rusher tonight.
That now there's an interesting conversation, and I think it does speak to what Dennis Allen was saying. Remember in the press conference, he was like, "Listen, we've gotten better on the interior, but we need to get better." Right? Like it's not that they're done there. Yeah, you've added Dio Dangbo who can play inside and outside. You've added Grady Jarrett who is on the wrong side of 30, but I think there can be a little bit of a reinvigoration here on this team with Billings and Dexter on the team. But clearly, Dennis Allen values the pressure from the interior more than he values the pressure from the edge. I agree with you. I think there could be a conversation on that. Darius Alexander sitting right there. I think he probably, unless he goes early in the second round, I think he probably would be there for you 39. It really is just about, where do you feel you're going to have to focus in on? Because I think you're going to get one run or the other. You're either going to get the defensive tackle run or you're going to get the running back run. If it's the running back run, can you risk missing out on the defensive tackle? But again, right, Ben Johnson, offensive coach, he's going to want his running back. And we know, I mean, listen, we can sugarcoat it and try and make it look as nice as possible. He traded the guy that's here. That tells you how he feels about the guy that's here. I don't think that has changed.
No, I'm with you on that. I think that still needs to be brought up in the conversation when we talk about the Bears backfield. Yes, they may like DeAndre Swift, but there was clearly something that Ben Johnson looked at and said, well, you're expendable for this reason. So clearly, knowing that, they're going to be getting a running back at some point.
Yeah.
Is it at 39? Is it at 41? Or do they feel that they have to get involved in the early 30s, like 32 onwards, to be able to get their guy?
Do the Bears trade up or trade back? What's the more likely scenario in the second round?
I think they trade up for a running back. It just feels like, given the way that the first round ended, Josh Simmons comes off the board unless the tackle run starts. Like Simmons he's coming off injury, but him going to Kansas City at 32 after they did the trade. if that happens too, that's that's not something else that should be talked about. I feel like with whatever they do at 39, or if it's moving up, I think that first player in the second round for the Bears is an offensive player again.
Yeah, listen, I would love to see what they do. Not only if the tackle run were to start, to me, best tackle left available is Ariante Ersary. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a trade up even for him. Yurko is good friends with his head coach up at Minnesota, and he said, "Listen, the guy's got some of the best feet in the draft. He's a little too excited. He's too hyper. The coach has got to turn him down a little bit." And left tackle has been a question mark on this team for years at this point. And I know we keep saying, right, they like Braxton Jones. They love what they see there. They did draft Braxton Jones as probable replacement at some, or hopeful replacement, I guess, last season. His hopeful replacement didn't look great. And I get the conversation of, are you going to have 3 left tackles on the team? No, the hope is you have the right left tackle on the team.
Yeah, and you have somebody who Karan Amagaji cannot go into training camp unquestioned at left tackle. I just think that that's a short-sighted way to look at it when he's proven nothing and they still don't know, how good he's going to be. You saw him in such limited fashion last year. He was, spent most of his rookie season recovering from injury. So I think it would be a wise pick to come. I mean, ideally they come away tonight with if they stay where they are, running back, offensive, a left tackle, and a pass rusher. Then that makes tomorrow, throw the darts where you need to, add depth at safety, add depth at linebacker. Like, you can justify a lot more on day 3 if you handle the biggest needs tonight, which they're in prime position to do. There's a lot of depth at those 3 positions that we 100%. Talked about on day 2. So rounds 2 and 3, just now you wonder, okay, like if the run happens, can they get involved? I would say that they are more apt to wanting to move up to not miss out on a run than they would be just standing pat. Standing pat last night was the right move by and large, because it would have been too expensive and it would have taken you out of position to go get several positions in round 2. Tonight, I think they are a little bit more aggressive with that.
Let's see. Hopefully Ryan Poles yet again makes the right pick. I do think Colston Loveland was the right pick, and we'll see what ends up happening here. Day 2 of the draft. This is fun because there's actually something real to talk about. It's not a mock, Courtney. We're finally done with mocks. That makes me so happy. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing love. As always, hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. For Courtney Cronin, it's your boy Pat the Designer, back at it again. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bed down. One love. Peace.